Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to my fellow senators. Through you, Mr. Deputy, let me wish all mothers advance Mother's Day greetings. We want to let you know that we love you and we appreciate you, especially to my mother. Mr. President, permit me just for a minute to recognize our youth parliamentarians who are with us today in the persons of Mr. John Tench of Castries Southeast, my home constituency, who will be the Minister for Social Transformation, Ms. Courtney Adrian from Babono, the Minister for Infrastructure, and of course, Mr. Alan Plants, who will serve as a presiding officer as Speaker of the House of Assembly. We are very, very pleased to note that Youth Parliament will resume next week, Wednesday, and the Senate will meet next Thursday. And so, Mr. President, I want to make a special appeal to our people who are viewing at home to tune in next week, Wednesday and Thursday, to support our young people. Because the next time around, or soon, very soon, they will be the ones who will be taking up these chairs. Mr. President, I rise to make my contribution to the Appropriations Bill 2022-2023. It's not my first time doing it. I first made a presentation in 21 as an opposition senator on the then Appropriations Bill. It was actually April 20th, 420, what we know as World Cannabis Day. A day that is filled with events where persons advocate for the legalization and decriminalization of cannabis. And I remember speaking of the Rasta man who could not practice his religion because any marijuana use in St. Lucia was illegal. But now, 1 year later, Mr. President, I can smile because this administration came into government. We decriminalized up to 30 grams of marijuana, and the Rastaman can now practice freely. But some on the other side who said they would support it, when a photo of a Rastaman with a joint was used in the House, they were shaking their head and saying this is inappropriate. But we want to talk about hypocrisy. Mr. President, I wanted to start my presentation this way to establish a sense of understanding amongst us that this government is a government that means business. When we say we are going to do something, we are going to get it done. Mr. President, this appropriations bill comes on the heels of life-changing achievements by the government, even in the first 100 days. Yes, of course, like the passing of the cannabis bill, decriminalizing of 30 grams of marijuana, making significant improvements in our health sector, because remember, when we came in, we tripled our testing capacity. You know what they said, and it's so easy how they forget. Y'all want to be like Barbados, y'all believe in second testing. They did not do what they were supposed to do with that $323 million, almost $500 million that they borrowed for COVID support. But they want to blame the next administration for the rise in cases, for deaths. We had Delta, we had Omicron, but up to a day like today, the only thing we could see is an accountability for 20 million of that amount. Where did the rest of the money go? But Mr. President, let's get back to business. We tripled efforts in the health sector. We reinstated the one laptop per child program, the one they say that have no gain. We allocated 10 million towards repairing homes for people. And I'm saying all of these things because the colleague senator is acting like he didn't know that these things happened. These are things we said we would prioritize as a government when we come into government. Social programs, health sector. But Mr. President, we are able to do in less than a year what they could not do in 5 years. But we will not be derailed. We will remain focused. The trend was already showing that COVID was on a rise. Let's not try this here. The trend was showing so, Mr. President. We see quite outstanding relief measures in this bill, especially considering the times that we are facing, these challenging times as a small island state. This Russian war on Ukraine How did St. Lucia reach in that? These are things we had absolutely no control over, Mr. President. But of course, we are the ones feeling the effects. The rise in prices, the rises in oil, and of course, let's not forget the dent to the labor sector due to what has transpired with COVID-19, persons being released from the workforce, persons losing their jobs. But Mr. President, even among these challenges, our Prime Minister has still been able to subsidize the fuel that they think is not a big deal. It is a very big deal, because I was in Barbados representing the Senate, the House of Parliament, just a couple weekends ago. And I would not be able to afford fuel in those territories. But our government loses, well, in fact, absorbs the cost, almost $1.6 million monthly. So we can subsidize fuel. Don't act like this is not a big deal. Even among those challenges, our Prime Minister has been able to absorb that 15% increase in rice, 31% increase in flour, 28% increase in brown sugar, 75% increase in white sugar, at a cost of $9.8 million. The government is absorbing it for the naysayers who say that the government is doing nothing. Millions monthly being absorbed by the government to cushion the blow. It's very significant. Mr. President, I heard the members speak of victimization and stopping of projects. We all know it is not a wise job. It is not wise to start a job which was left a mess by the previous employee and continue that mess. You were hired to make a difference, to make a change, to make things better, Mr. President. You had your opportunity to say all of that. You could not say it. Mr. President, this government was given the mandate to clean up the mess that the country was left in, because remember they said the country was broken. The government was elected based on transparency and accountability, on the premise that St. Lucians trusted the slate of candidates that Honorable Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre presented to St. Lucians, and they voted them out. We have begun the cleaning up process. But Mr. President, the reason why I talk about this is because they will tell you, as I said, that when we came in, we stopped projects. But that is not true, Mr. President, because as we speak, we understand the value of continuance of some of those projects, and they are continuing. But when you look at the Grosile Highway that the members spoke about, the Minister for Infrastructure gave us a clearer understanding of what really transpired with that construction of that 4-lane highway. $32 million when the Labour Party administration left office.
Senators, I understand the need for crosstalk, but can we just keep it down a little bit? I'm having a little difficulty hearing the presenter. Thank you.
Thank you for your protection, Mr. Deputy. When the Labour Party administration left office in 2015, an agreement was signed with the QAT Fund for $32 million. In 2017, the United Workers' Party came in and they cancelled the loan. I want to talk about stopping projects. And then the last minute, closer to election, $16 million, half of the budgeted amount for the 4-lane highway. $16 million for less than a mile of road? Have you been to the constituency of Grosile to ask the people what they think about that? Half of the allocation gone for less than a mile of road. But a special prosecutor is coming, so we will get more information on that. Mr. President, you heard up earlier how much we paid. With the mismanagement of this project by the United Workers' Party administration, you can well imagine that the cost of this project may well double, because now, with the constraints of the supply chain and the cost of materials going up, our construction sector will feel that significant blow. But Mr. President, Mr. Deputy, when we came into government and we did our assessment of the outstanding projects, this was one project that needed to be paused. There were too many irregularities, and further investigation will take place. But whilst this project has paused, Our Prime Minister has announced that discussion is happening with the QAT fund so we can look to reinstate the financing of that project. It will get done. We always have to clean up after them, Mr. President. But they are the ones who are saying we are stopping projects and victimizing people. Now, if we want to talk about victimization, we can, you know. Because I remember watching the news several years ago and seeing how the United Workers' Party victimizes their own. The then leader of the opposition, who had his office near courts on the chaussee, he was removed and replaced by the then member for Miku South. Persons whose family members were founding members of the United Workers' Party. You see the cameras on them walking outside with their boxes. 2 years these people were unemployed, victimizing their own people. And you want to talk about victimization? Under the St. Lucia Labour Party, not one person has been victimized. What we have seen, Mr. Deputy, is if projects have come to a pause, because we need to ensure that we are managing the finances of our country, or if projects have been completed. That's what you have seen, or contracts have ended. We don't victimize people, Mr. President. But again, hypocrisy. We treat our people better than that. We put them first. We want to talk about projects. It clearly seems to me, Mr. President, that they don't remember. Because the wind farm project in Dennery that they stopped, if they didn't stop it, we wouldn't have to be coming to borrow for it. The Pajoa letter, let's not even go there. But the senator, Honorable Mr. Stanislas, spoke about Soufrière. I know the current Minister for Sports to be a well-learned gentleman in the sports arena, a national athlete. In football, he played cricket with Senator Fede, so Senator Fede can attest to that. I know he has some experience there. And there was another former national athlete in the person of the member for Dennery North who was in the house when he said that, but he didn't dispute it. But it had to take that same sports minister to put lights on a court in Bonte. Lights. Something y'all could not do in 5 years, Mr. President. Less than a year. 5.5 years. You could not even put lights on a court, but you want to challenge when people are telling you that you did something wrong. Mr. President, that is just their modus operandi. But let's move on. The opposition senator said, if we are given devices, we have to provide the programs to support. But it clearly seems to me that she did not read the following page, because she just quoted one part, Mr. President. If I can draw your attention to the section under education, page 42. That page speaks of the OECS program for educational advancement and relevant learning, the Pearl program, not the Pearl of the Caribbean, which they promised us. Because the Pearl program, it speaks of a grant of 27 million, where the major highlight of this program is to introduce the new digital curriculum, where student development will go beyond academics. The same thing she was asking was just on the following page. They do not read. And that is why they could not understand the mathematical problem that we were able to solve. In 1 year of being in government, less than a year, we found money, we found ways, we repurposed, we did what we had to do. So many achievements by our Prime Minister, somebody we can trust. They could not do that in 5 years. Mr. President, about the Grizzly Highway, whilst this project has been paused, we see that Prime Minister has announced something else in the pipeline for St. Lucians. He announced that work has started on the upgrade of the Millennium Highway West Coast Road, which is expected to create employment for 250 to 300 persons. And the key word here, Mr. President, is work has started. So let me pause for a second, if you permit me, to address something that Senator Herod brought up on roads. Mr. President, this thing about people don't eat roads, as if they want to portray, or they want to spin a narrative to not put things in context. When we spoke about roads, you know what our situation was, Mr. Deputy? People were dying. COVID cases were increasing. We were simply saying this was not a priority at the time. But of course, we see cases have reduced significantly by the efforts of the Minister for Health. Thank you to the Minister for Health and the frontline workers who work day and night, because we tripled testing capacity at the Ezra Long Laboratory. We did all what we thought needed to happen, Mr. President. And that is why we are recovering, and so we can now focus on the roads. We can now focus on expanding our economy. So don't try to spin things, because St. Lucian's not stupid. That is why they did what they did on July 26, 2021. Mr. President, we're still on employment, and I have to say this because it seems like the opposition members do not understand, so I need to break it down for them. We learned that the long-awaited Grosile Police Station and the Halls of Justice will be constructed in this financial year. 100 jobs. Jobs, Mr. President. These are the things that people are looking for now as we recover from this COVID-19 pandemic. We all know that our workforce has suffered a huge blow due to this pandemic. People have been displaced, lost their jobs, salary cuts. We had to transition almost fully to nearly operating operating in a virtual space. And then we saw many business ideas springing up as a result. Now I have to wonder, Mr. President, if our Prime Minister had some foresight, the same way he had the foresight on the One Laptop Per Child program, because our children did move almost fully to a virtual world. Excuse me. But he was able to campaign and now design a ministry, what we know as the youth economy, to address those same business ideas that sprung up as a result of the pandemic. Mr. President, the member wanted to know about the youth economy, and I will tell him the youth economy is about employment. It's about taking the skills, the talents of our young people and nurturing it into enterprise. We are taking hundreds of job opportunities that can be created from that ministry, from that $10 million allocation. And I want to thank the Prime Minister for doing this for our young people, because under this St. Lucia Labour Party administration, you will not hear us telling young people that they feel entitled. Young people represent the majority of our population. How can you not consider them? So the $10 million from the youth economy, I will break it down in a little while for you, Mr. President. We will do what we have to do with the resources that we have to help develop our youth. Mr. President, the senator from Soufrière spoke about continuance of talent development in the creative sector. In the orange economy, it's still going to continue. We will still see the creatives, the singers, the dancers, the gamers, the artists, hairdressers, the spa therapists that he spoke about. In the blue economy, fishers, those in water sports, the divers. The green economy, the agro-processing, yes, it's going to be there. Farmers, packers, they will get gainful employment through the youth economy. Hundreds of jobs, because the challenge that our young people face right now is unemployment. For the benefits, well, for your benefits, Mr. Deputy, there will be training, mentoring, marketing, and financial support. As I remember when I was straight out of South Louis Community College, I had a few ideas. But for me to get a loan to develop my ideas, I needed a credit line for about 2 years. Our young people now, by the time they save up in that 2 years, somebody else with the financing comes and sweeps that idea. And that leaves our people discouraged. But under the youth economy, we will create easier access to funding and financing. I don't know what about that they cannot understand, because it's been said in this honorable house over and over. Mr. President, Mr. Deputy, we will see the strengthening of existing business structures, research, development of technology for our young people, because they need to adapt to the times, capacity building, e-commerce, so their ideas can be monetized. Skill development, and yes, I spoke about the training, because they need to be able to adapt to international standards and best practices. We are thinking beyond our borders. We are thinking of jobs. That's the economic relief. That's the relief that our Prime Minister is offering our people today. Mr. President, the Prime Minister did announce that a statutory board with its own board of directors will be formed to oversee this youth economy, and that it will allow for a bottom-up approach where they can tell us what it is that they want to invest in, what it is that they want to do, rather than us telling them what we think they need to do. This is how we are inclusive of our young people. This is what this government is about. That's not things that you all know. Mr. President, we also heard of the announcement of Skilled 758, and I am particularly looking forward to that. This is an app that will allow young people to register their skill set, upload their work and their resumes, and connect with employers locally and regionally. We are thinking beyond borders, Mr. President. That's how far the youth economy can go. And I was very happy when the Prime Minister made this announcement that in collaboration with the Ministry for Youth Development and Sports, this app will be launched within the next few weeks. Mr. President, we looked at the presentations in the lower house, and we see that with every single presentation, there were opportunities for gainful employment. There were jobs. And I really wanted to highlight jobs because the members don't seem to understand that this is what our bill is all about, creating opportunities to empower our people. When we speak of that same community-based tourism, Mr. President, we are also thinking of jobs. We are thinking of expanding the tourism and hospitality sector. We see that Sandals and other hotels have already given us a commitment that they will be expanding. We are getting it done because we were promised, how many hotels were we promised? And we were promised 10,000 rooms by the previous administration, and the former Minister of Tourism is seated in this house today. So I hope when it is his time, Mr. President, then he can tell us what happened to the hotels and the 10,000 rooms. Mr. President, we get it done. In this appropriations bill, we see allocations for expanding. Not that we are doing away with any of the accommodations, but we are expanding to our communities where tourists can experience authentic opportunities, where that currency can filter, where you can see ancillary on the map for something. You see Choiseul on the map for craft. You see Castries Southeast, Peter Floyd Forest. Yeah, we have a trail there. Maybe our minister will explore this a little more. Our member for Castries Southeast. We have opportunities, Mr. President, and these are opportunities that will create employment. We're talking about immediate relief. Okay, we all know you come and you pass your appropriations bill, and then the funds are allocated to do what it is that you need to do. So the members are acting that this is as if this is the first time that they are debating a bill, on an appropriations bill. It's not. So let's not try to fool the people, Mr. President. We see how government has committed to expanding the agricultural sector. And although the supply chain globally has presented us with those challenges, Mr. President, we see support for the beef sector, CMOS. That's a high-value item. 1.4 million towards our cocoa. When you travel to Europe and you find St. Lucian chocolate on the shelves, it's exotic. It's priced at a very high rate, Mr. President. These are things we need to be expanding because COVID really taught us that lesson to diversify. So there are measures that are happening within the agricultural sector that will take care of our people. Mr. President, and of course, livestock, support to the livestock sector, and the relocation of that $20 million Beausejour meat processing plants, that one in Vieux-Fort that the UWP decommissioned. Mr. President, they talk about stopping projects. Not even bananas they could send to France. They stop projects and they do nothing. Mr. President, we continue with the section on housing and urban renewal, where we saw that even before this budget, our government was able to immediately implement the housing repair program to the tune of $10 million. Persons who were differently able, the elderly, the shut-in, low-income families, they benefited. And I make mention of this, Mr. President, because it provides a path for us to understand that the St. Lucia Labour Party, under the leadership of Honorable Philip J. Pierre, was able to do all of these things in less than a year. Can you imagine what we can do in 5? Mr. President, people find gainful employment under the St. Lucia Labour Party administration. We saw rent relief for CDC tenants of over $4 million. Still in the budget, we see an additional allocation, Mr. President. 40 new lots will be provided in southern parts of the island and 150 island-wide. Again, another $4 million allocated for this. Then we have the rent-to-own initiative, one that I'm very excited about, which I know we will hear a whole lot more about in the next coming days. Wait for it. I speak of all of these opportunities because they provide jobs. They provide that immediate relief that our people are looking for. Food prices, yes, have risen, but that doesn't automatically translate to an increase in what you earn, Mr. President. But our Prime Minister did announce the start of a process that is long overdue, the revision of the Labour Act to address what St. Lucians know as the minimum wage. The St. Lucia Labour Party will be coming to the House to make those adjustments. Long overdue. These are things you all should have done, but we will get it done, Mr. President. Relief measures. Workers earning $25,000 annually will no longer be paying income tax. You think that's not a big deal? It's a big deal for them because that's nearly 15,000 persons from the public and private sector who will be impacted, who will be benefiting from this. If you earn up to $4,000, we did say that we would work towards eliminating income tax for persons who make $4,000. Mr. President, I'm happy to report, according to the Prime Minister, that we are halfway there. We are seeing that $2,083 is already being exempted. Your deductible for personal tax, income tax, Mr. President, it has increased from $18,000 to $25,000. That's an increase of $7,000. These things mean a lot to people. We see for the period of November 2021 to March 2022, $3.8 million in tax refunds has already been paid to almost 2,000 taxpayers. That is relief, Mr. President. $10,000 for the youth economy, jobs. 10 million for the youth economy. 10 million for community tourism. 10 million for MSMEs. 10 million for housing assistance, Mr. President. I mean, these are tremendous strides to taking our people from the mess that we inherited to a higher level, Mr. President. Much needed employment at this time to help cushion the blow and create and support sustainable livelihoods in St. Lucia. All the things I mentioned, we campaigned on when we said we were going to put people first. And this is what we told St. Lucians we would do, and we are doing it, Mr. President. But sadly, members opposite, you heard them, calling this budget all kinds of names, like the former member for Soufre Fosé Jacques, not seeing the value and how these initiatives can truly impact the lives of people. If they are honest with themselves, Mr. President, they will tell you that what is presented here will have a positive impact even on their lives of their friends, their family members, the people that they care about. Because this is a budget for all, not just one set of persons. It's all. They have no Belarus doctrine here. So, Mr. President, as I close, I want to encourage members on the other side, well, at least the one member that is left to address us today, to see the bigger picture. See the value, the honesty, and the transparency. Support taking our country to a higher level, Mr. President, rather than just coming here to oppose for opposing's sake, because everything that they oppose, I have been able to provide an explanation for. Why? Because it is here. The Prime Minister's 2022-23 budget address, empowering our people, transforming our economy, it is not here. So please do not come to the House and peddle lies and disinformation just at a deliberate attempt to score cheap political points, Mr. President. So as I said, I was closing, and I do hope that the final member on the opposite side can lend his support to the appropriations bill, because as we know, this is the most important budget, most important bill that is going to significantly impact the lives of our people. I want to take this opportunity to thank our civil servants who work tirelessly day and night on this bill, persons from the Prime Minister's office as well, and also our good Prime Minister, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, for his wisdom and foresight and for making those recommendations in this budget that will help us take our country to the next level. Thank you.